Joe Cox had a fifth-grade education, no factory, and no investors. The engineers at every major chainsaw company in the world could not solve the problem he solved. He found the answer by watching a beetle. Joseph Buford Cox was born in 1905 in Texas. His formal education ended at the 5th grade. He was not an engineer. He was not an inventor in any conventional sense. He left Texas as a young man with nothing in his pockets and hitchhiked to Oregon looking for logging work. He found it. He spent years in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, running gas-powered chainsaws, filing scratcher chains, watching time disappear into maintenance that never seemed to end. He was not running out of patience with the chainsaw. He was running out of patience with the chain. He looked for solutions everywhere. He studied the specs of every machine he could find. He read everything available on cutting technology. Nothing worked. No answer appeared. He was a 5th-grade dropout looking for an engineering solution in technical literature written for people with engineering degrees. The answer was not there. In 1946, the United States was rebuilding. Soldiers had come home by the millions. The federal government promised every veteran a low-cost mortgage. Housing demand exploded across every state. The country needed lumber, and it needed it fast. The Pacific Northwest was the timber capital of the United States. Oregon held more old-growth Douglas fir than any other state in the country. Logging was the dominant industry of the region. Any tool that could cut wood faster was worth a fortune. The chainsaw already existed. Andreas Steele had patented the first electric chainsaw in 1926. His first gasoline model followed in 1929. But these early machines had a problem that no engineer had solved. The motor was not the weak point. The cutting chain was. The dominant chain on the market was called the scratcher chain. Each tooth worked like a tiny file dragged through the wood in one direction. It cut slowly. It dulled within hours. Loggers spent more time sharpening their chains than actually cutting trees. A professional logger lost nearly half his working day to maintenance. The chainsaw existed. The chain holding it back existed too. Then, in the autumn of 1946, during the Tillamook Burn, a series of devastating forest fires that had swept through the northern Oregon Coast Range, Cox was searching for salvage timber. He brought his axe down on an old hollow stump and stopped. The stump was riddled with grubs. They were the larvae of Ergates spiculatus, the western pine sawyer beetle. Each larva was the size of a man's forefinger, creamy white bodies, dark heads tipped with 2 C-shaped jaws. The species had existed in the forests of western North America for millions of years. Adult females lay their eggs in the bark of dead conifers. The larvae hatch and tunnel into the wood. They can chew through solid Douglas fir and ponderosa pine for up to 5 years before emerging as adult beetles. Cox knew about timber beetles. Every logger in Oregon did. They were a nuisance. They ruined salvage timber by tunneling through it. But that day, Cox stopped to actually watch them. He noticed something every other logger had missed. The larvae were not chewing the wood like a saw. They were not scraping forward and backward. Their 2 mandibles worked alternately, side to side, left and right. One jaw cut left, the other jaw cut right. That was why they could chew through sound timber in any direction, with or against the grain, at a speed no scratcher chain could match. Every saw chain on the market in 1946 cut in only one direction, straight ahead, like a series of files dragged across the wood. The beetle did something entirely different. Cox scooped some of the larvae into a jar and carried them home. He spent the next several months studying the grubs at his kitchen table in Portland. He examined them under a magnifying glass. He watched them feed on small blocks of wood. He photographed the cutting patterns they left behind. Then he went down to his basement. His basement was not a laboratory. It was a small workshop with hand tools, a workbench, and a vise. Cox had no machine shop. He had no engineers helping him. He had no funding. He started with a standard motorcycle drive chain. He cut and welded hooked chisel-shaped cutter teeth onto each link. The teeth alternated direction down the length of the chain. One tooth angled left, the next tooth angled right. The design mimicked the larva's jaws exactly. Cox filed each tooth by hand. He bolted the prototype onto a gas-powered chainsaw and tested it on logs in his backyard. The chain bit into the wood and pulled itself through. It cut faster than any chain he had ever used. It stayed sharp longer. It required less filing. It worked with the grain or against it. Cox filed for a patent. In 1947, Joe and Alice Cox founded the Oregon Saw Chain Manufacturing Corporation. 4 employees, 1 product. That November, the first Cox chipper chain was sold. $300,000 in revenue in the first year. The established saw manufacturers dismissed Cox's operation. Loggers called it a Jippo outfit, a derogatory term for a small independent contractor working outside the major industry players. Many refused to believe that a 5th-grade dropout working out of a basement could outperform the engineers at major companies. Cox did not advertise. He did not need to. Loggers who tried the chipper chain came back for more. Then they told other loggers. Word spread through the camps of Washington and Oregon faster than any salesman could have managed. By 1949, Oregon Saw Chain was selling into Canada. By 1951, annual sales exceeded $1 million. In 1952, the company acquired a Canadian manufacturer and opened its first foreign plant in Guelph, Ontario. In 1953, Joe Cox sold his company to an American businessman named John D. Gray. Gray saw what Cox could not. He saw a global market. He renamed the parent company Omar Industries, with Oregon Saw Chain as its main subsidiary. In 1955, Omar moved into a 65,000 square foot factory in Portland. That same year, Gray flew to Sweden and signed Oregon's first European customer. Then something happened that nobody had planned. The company filed a patent for a small steel bumper called the guard link. It was added to the chain to prevent it from snagging on small brush during cutting. Pulpwood companies that bought the new chain noticed something unexpected. Their loggers were getting injured less often. The guard link reduced chainsaw kickback. Kickback is the violent backward jerk that occurs when a chain catches incorrectly and throws the saw toward the operator's face. Kickback had been killing and maiming loggers for decades. Pulpwood companies began mandating Oregon chain on every saw their crews used. Many of those safety features eventually became industry standards required by United States regulators. A chain invented to cut faster had accidentally made the chainsaw safer. By the 1960s, Oregon was the dominant saw chain in North America. Throughout the 1970s, the company opened plants in Brazil and Puerto Rico. Its products were sold to chainsaw manufacturers as standard original equipment parts. Andreas Stihl's company eventually developed its own proprietary chain in 1969 called the Oil-O-Matic. Stihl became the only major manufacturer to use a chain other than Oregon. Every other major brand adopted Oregon chain. By the late 1970s, Oregon chain was running on chainsaws made by Husqvarna, Echo, Poulan, McCulloch, and dozens of smaller manufacturers around the world. The Pacific Northwest startup, with 4 employees, had become the global standard. In 1990, Oregon engineers tried something nobody had ever done before. They tried to build a chain that could cut concrete. The idea came out of an internal employee pitch meeting called the Idea Fair. A team member named Lewis Scott proposed embedding industrial diamonds into saw chain. Industrial diamonds are the hardest cutting material on Earth. The engineers welded diamond segments onto a steel chain. The result could cut through concrete, brick, and stone. Oregon launched the new product line as ICS that same year. The first ICS chainsaw won Best New Product at the 1990 World of Concrete trade show. It could make square corner cuts in concrete that circular diamond saws could not. By the end of the decade, ICS was the world leader in diamond cutting systems for concrete. A saw chain company had entered the construction industry without anyone seeing it coming. In 2021, the company officially renamed itself Oregon Tool Incorporated, a return to its roots. In October 2021, a private equity firm called Platinum Equity acquired Oregon Tool for a transaction reportedly valued at $1.57 billion. Joe Cox died on August 10, 2002 in Portland. He was 96 years old. He had lived to see the chain he sketched in his basement become the global standard for cutting wood. He left behind no children. His wife Alice had passed before him. Today, Oregon Tool is headquartered in Portland, the same city where Cox spread his beetle specimens across a kitchen table in 1946. The company employs roughly 3,300 people. It manufactures in 10 plants across the United States, Canada, Brazil, and China. Its products are sold in more than 110 countries. The Oregon brand has sold more than 40 million units in its history. Oregon manufactures more feet of saw chain than any other manufacturer in the world. The basic design Cox sketched in his Portland basement in 1947 is still the foundation of the modern saw chain. The teeth still alternate left and right. The chain still pulls itself through the wood the way the beetle's jaws pulled themselves through the stump. Millions of years of evolution in the forests of Western North America ended up in a basement workshop because one man with a 5th grade education and no engineering degree stopped to watch something every other logger had walked past for years. The engineers at every major chainsaw company in the world had been looking for the answer in laboratories and technical literature. Joe Cox found it in a hollow tree stump in Oregon. He found it because he stopped to look.